Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third lecture of the OUSL Distinguished Lecture Series. My name is Ishan Abewardena. I'm the Director of the International Academic Relations Division here at the OUSL. Today, it's my great pleasure to welcome our distinguished speaker, Professor Kazu Yamaji from the National Institute of Information in Japan. I need to formally introduce Dr. Yamaji. Dr. Kazu Yamaji. Kazu Yamaji received his PhD in Systems and Information Engineering from the Toyohashi University of Technology, Japan in the year 2000. After graduation, Dr. Yamaji served as a research fellow of the Japanese Society for Promotion of the Science at the Wakayama Medical University for 2 years. From 2002 to 2007, Kazu pursued his career as a researcher in brain science, in the Brain Science Institute at the Laboratory for Neuroinformatics in Japan. From 2007 to 2012, he was attached to the Research and Development Center for Academic Networks at the National Institute of Informatics, NII, Japan, as an associate professor. Currently, Kazu is an associate professor attached to the Academic Authentication Systems Office of NII. Dr. Yamaji has published extensively in his field of expertise and has delivered many guest lectures and workshops worldwide. Currently, his primary research interests include modeling and development of trusted e-science space in order to share and reuse research materials. Ladies and gentlemen, during this lecture, Dr. Yamaji will introduce an innovative repository software named WEKO, which supports institutional repositories within university libraries. Furthermore, Kazu will explain how these repositories have the potential to preserve a wide range of academic materials, including research and learning materials. During the lecture, he will also draw on his experience from certain pilot projects which demonstrate how these technologies can assist in academic institutions around the world. Now, with that, it's my great pleasure to invite Dr. Kazu Yamaji to deliver this guest lecture today to all of you watching online, as well as our audience here at OUSL.
Thank you, Shin. It's my great honor to have a lecture in this OUSL. Before starting my lecture today, I'd like to introduce our institution, NII, what the NII is doing in Japan. So this is a schematic diagram we are doing as a cyber science infrastructure in Japan. So please look at the bottom side of this figure. We have a ultra high-speed network named SciNet. The current version of the SciNet is 4. So we are offering 40 giga backbone bandwidth, and the next version 5 will go into the 100 giga or possibly 400 giga backbone. And on the top of that, we have a middleware service, such as an authentication in HPCI and identity federation and VPN and security service. And on the top of that, please look at the third layer. We have a computing resources for HPCI, and this is today's topic, academic information infrastructure. All right. And this is then services we have in content sharing services offering from NII. So please look at the left-hand side of this slide. The circle colored by green, light green. So we have a dark archive of the electronic journal named REO, and we are also digitizing the domestic journal. And the third one, the Kaken, is a report of the granting aid. This is a report of the funding report. And also we have a catalog service. And these are the kind of the centralized service offered from our institution. And then beside that, we have a institutional repository activity. So we are collaborating with Japanese universities to promote this project. And there are, I guess, two major roles in a university repository. The one is the self-archiving for the promotion of open access. due to the high price of the electronic journal, even in Japan, many of the universities have to give up to make a contract with the major publishers. For instance, our institution has different features. One is the inter-university institution supplying the ICT infrastructure to the Japanese university throughout Japan. The other one is a research center in informatics. And we are the member of the virtual university. And this virtual university gave up to make a contract with Elsevier, Freedom. Now, we can read the Elsevier electronic journal PDF file via transaction. And in order to avoid such a digital divide, this kind of open access activity has been started. And there are two major laws, two major ways in open access. The one is the green archive. The other one is a so-called gold archive or gold way. The green archive, green road, is the self-archiving. On contrast, the gold road, gold method, is a APC, author processing charge, or hybrid journal, or open access journal itself. Even in a hybrid journal, this is going to be a double pay from the viewpoint of the university. For instance, the APC, author processing charge, is the system that if the author pay a certain amount of the money, when his article will be published, that article will be the open access. Everybody can download the PDF file. However, even in that case, the university library still have to have a contract with the publishers. So that's going to be the double pay if you compare it with that of the pure full open access journal. So from that point of view, the self-archiving, the green journal, green load has an advantage in terms of the open access. And second law is the dissemination of the university outcome. In Japan, I'll let you know in a second in my slide, the majority of the contents in the institutional repository is a kind of monograph or paper. However, different type of the contents can be stored in your institutional repository, such as a technical paper or university bulletin, any type of the report you published from the viewpoint of the university. And also, this kind of different type of the contents have to be included the learning materials or data sets. So different type of the contents have to be can be stored in an institutional repository. And here is our activity in an institutional repository in Japan. So from now, I'd like to explain our experience according to these our background and time course. The first one is the funding. We've started this funding program in 2005 and ended in 12. We prolonged this funding program for 8 years. And we divided this program into 3 categories. I wrote area 1, 2, 3 categories. The area 1 is a support for developing IR, developing the IR system itself, and content creation. So content creation includes the digitization of the contents. The area 2 is the R&D, especially focusing on the new technology surrounding the repository system. And area 3, this is also very important. This supports the community activity. So today I do not have good enough time to insight into each individual program, but this is just for your information. This is an example from the area 2 in a phase 3 project, R&D. And here is the example in area 3. And from this, please look at the second one, the SCPJ. And this is a Japanese version of the Society Copyright Policy database. So in a worldwide perspective, there is a database named Sherpa Romeo. This is also towards the policy copyright, Society Copyright Policy database, worldwide scope. And this is a Japanese version. And only the database which covers the OA policies of almost all Japanese academic societies. And differences from the original database and this Japanese one is that they recognized, the developers, they recognized in case of Japan, no policy is a kind of a policy. So I want to give some example. This is the coverage of the different type of the open access policy. The circles on the top side means the Japanese database policy, and the bottom one is the Sherpa Romeo, the worldwide copyright policy. In case of in Japan, we have a gray policy, which means that there's no policy at this moment. This is something seems like a Japanese historical background, but the majority of our society doesn't have a policy in terms of the open access still. So, which means that there are we have big majority have to be construct in terms of the open access policy, if I compare with that of the worldwide database. And look at green. The green means that author can archive both preprints or postprints. And the next blue one, even in the papers published from the commercial journal, the blue one, the author can archive only postprint. And in case of the Japanese database, the second majority is this blue one. And yellow one is the author can archive only preprints. The green, blue, and the yellow means that the societies are categorized in a green, blue, and yellow has a something good policy, open access policy, from viewpoint of our activity. In contrast, white means the author cannot archive their author final version or any kind of the version in an institutional repository. In that case, the paper published from that society, the university library have to have a contract with the publishers. Otherwise, the end users cannot read the PDF file. Okay, we are developing this kind of database, and this database is very useful when the librarians deposit the self-archive author final version to the institutional repository. So maybe from the near future, if there are so many domestic societies in this country, maybe you also have to develop this type of the database in this country. And this is just a user interface of the SCPD database, Society Policy Database. And this database and this web service has been developed during our budget support. So the challenges there now have to go is that how to maintain the database, the data itself, or how to maintain the system in terms of the long-term sustainability, long-term point of view. So the last year, I had the experience to talk with original Sherpa Romeo, the Worldwide Society Copyright Policy Database. I have experience with the guys who was developing Sherpa Romeo, but they are also struggling with how to maintain the database in a long-term manner. So we like to find out a new solution how to do that, and we would like to feed back to the European community in terms of this society policy database. But anyway, because of our support for the institutional repository, this is the stats of the number of the institutional repository in Japan around 2011. So the number of the repository in Japan until 2011 has already been exceeded 200. So in order to make the contents stored in the institutional repository more than 200, more visible and more reachable by the end user, we have these kind of infrastructure. Okay, the data stored in an institutional repository, most of the old data in a Japanese institutional repository was harvested, or the data is fetched to the system we are operating as a IRDB contents analysis, IRDB. So in terms of, there is an open standard to aggregate the data from the repository to the centralized search service. And we are using the standard named OII PMH, and we developed our metadata schema named Juni2. And the IRDB is a system, something like a metadata hub system. And via this IRDB, we redistributed metadata to the different type of the search engine or different type of the service, which is mainly utilized by the end users. So we have 3 different type of the service. The one is the Gyro. And this is a search engine service which allow end user across the search, across the institutional repository. Okay. So the Gyro is the search engine I wrote on the top of this slide. The second one is the content IRDB content analysis system. I'll let you know in a second what is about this. And the final, SCINI is the largest database of the academic journal article in Japan. And this is an example how to reach to the full text articles stored in an institutional repository. Please look at the left-hand side of this slide. This is a search result by using the SCINI database. So if there is a full text content in a university institutional repository, the many student and also the faculty member is daily using the SCINI database in their research work. And if there is a content in a repository, the SCINI shows the repository link in a search result. And by clicking the links, the end user redirects to the institutional repository metadata splash page, and finally leads to the full text contents. Using this, the visibility of the contents stored in the institutional repository, making it bigger and bigger. And here is the top page user interface of the Gyro, the Japanese institutional repository online. So this Gyro also has a search window, and it can lower the content by content type and by organization. And this search engine mainly utilized by the librarians in order to compare their repository with the others, or at the inter-university paper copy and transfer service, ILL service. So for instance, the student requests a paper copy to the university librarians. Maybe the librarian search the title by using this user interface. And if there is a full text content available in an institutional repository, maybe the librarian let the student know you don't have to waste your money. You don't have to use the ILL. The full text article can be downloaded from the institutional repository. The content is almost the same, but just doesn't have a publisher's logo. So like me also have experience, recognized the institutional repository by means of the ILL request. But anyway, this Gyro is mainly utilized by the librarians. And if clicking the right-hand side graph, this goes to the IRDB content analysis system. And you can get many different type of the stats from this IRDB content analysis system. And by using this, the university librarian can know the status of their institutional repository or can compare their status with the others. But anyway, the number of the institutional repository until around 2011 has already been exceeded more than 200. The curve is something like saturated, making a plateau. at that time, most of the national university in Japan already have its own institutional repository. The total number of the national university in Japan is counted around 80. Most of them already have their own repository. However, the implementation rate of the public and the private university is still hovering around 20 or 30%. And in addition, the Ministry of Education and Research in Japan mandated to digitize the doctor thesis and open in public via internet and mainly utilized by the institutional repository. This is a mandate, not a recommendation. This is a mandate. So if you want to get the PhD title, your PhD thesis has to be deposited to the institutional repository or any other way. Anyway, it has to be publicly available via internet. And when this was started in Japan, there still are more than 200 universities which doesn't have a repository. In Japan, about 400 universities are now offering PhD, but still there are 200 universities which doesn't have a repository. And also in Japan, there are more than 700 higher education. Plus, the universities, which already have their own institutional repository, also they are struggling with how to maintain the system itself and how to update the system itself. And in order to make all clear, we've decided to start a repository cloud service named Jail Cloud. And this has been started in 2012 and by mainly utilize the repository, homegrown repository system named WEKO. This is WEKO, one of the topic of this lecture. And when we started this service, we targeted on we should have more than 200 repository by the end of the 2017. So you will know how does it go in my later slide. And this is a simple system architecture of the Gyro Cloud. So the green, some kind of the clown-shaped logo, this is the logo of the WEKO repository system. So the university can use the WEKO system by this Gyro Cloud service. And NII supports the system, all over the system. Therefore, the institution, the university, can focus on to create the content itself, to handle the content itself. So this is a clear division between the university side and our NII side. And here is the Gyro Cloud has a community side. So when we started this service, we had tons of the requests and questions from the end users. So we individually answer to that question, but now we don't have to do that. The early adopters, the university, can answer to that question coming from the newcomers. So it's going to be a very good cycle, and it also reduces our operational cost. So we want to gain such a kind of community activity. And by this Gyro Cloud, the current number of the institutional repository in Japan is 561. So the deep green is a university-owned development. And light green and blue is the Gyro Cloud. So now, the Gyro Cloud service has been started 2012 and now is still 14, but we have already exceeded more than 250. University newly started their institutional repository by using the Gyro Cloud. And this is stat from the open door, which is counting the number of the institutional repositories all over the world. So many of the universities in Japan is not yet registered this open door, but we are the number one all over the world in terms of the number of the institutional repository. But you know that some of the European country doesn't have a number of the universities, so this should be calculated by means of the percentage or something. But now the Japan is the number one in terms of the number of the repository. And our WEKO system and the Agile Cloud service has been awarded by the Stanford the last year. And here is the type of the content stored in the Japanese repository. I'm very sorry, it's very hard to see, but the majority of the contents, which denoted by the sky blue, is a departmental bulletin paper written in Japanese. And most of the content is a kind of a monograph or the paper, because this is the work done by the university librarians. And we have a categories like learning materials or data set, but this is going to be our challenge. And I will let you know in a second what's happening in learning materials. And this is an example about the learning materials in a repository. So the percentage of the learning materials is, and this is a stat from the ILDB content analysis system, is something around 0.5% from the total, just a 0.5%. And this is the stat from the Hokkaido University in Japan, one of the biggest institutional repository in Japan. And their ratio in learning materials is also the same with the others, less than 1%. So if you compare it with the normal journal or paper, the learning materials are few. And you cannot recognize in this kind of graph. However, this is the access ranking of the HASCAP, the Hokkaido University Institutional Repository. The 8 of the top 10 is the learning materials, even though the learning material itself is 0. Something percentage, but highly accessed by the end users. And here is an access log of the graph theory lecture note in Hokkaido University Institutional Repository. Most of the burst is regular access via search engine. This is not a robot access. This is an access from the human being, but via search engine. The some identical burst corresponds to the math class examination. And not only the student of the Hokkaido University, but also the examination period is almost corresponds with the other university. The student from the other university also accessing to this Hokkaido University's lecture note. So which means that if there is a very nice open access lecture note or learning materials in an institutional repository or the other way, that's going to be a very good blending from the viewpoint of the university. Many people will access to that the learning materials. So the Japanese university librarians knows this kind of stat. So they have to open their eye and have to have strategies how to maintain, how to get the learning materials to the Japanese repository. And this is going to be our big challenge in the near future. And I'd like to move on to the WEKO system, homegrown repository system right from now. The WEKO means repository in Swahili. Some of the open source software products are named, borrowing the name from the Swahili language. So I mimic their ways when I named this WEKO system. And this is a logo. This green is a kind of the milk crown. Milk crown is once you drop the milk on the milk, this kind of crown will be created. So maybe you have experience to see this kind of by using the slow fast capture camera or something. So this is kind of the milk crown of the digital contents. So once the researcher drops their content into the WEKO system, this kind of sunk of the researcher will be created. So we are implying this kind of message into this logos and developing the new feature of the WEKO system. And here is the features of the WEKO system. The first one is high functionality. Almost all the function you need as a repository has already been shipped with the WEKO system. And the functionality is almost the same with the DSpace ePrints, the other product. And the differences is very easy to use. Once you install the WEKO system into the server, after that, you don't have to log into the server. The all functionality can be customized by using your mouse, keyboard, and web browser. Just it. So after the installation, it's very easy to customize. And the final one is as you like. In a later slide, I will explain in detail about the WEKO was developed as one of the modules of the content management system. The content management system is a kind of a system to create the home page itself. So there is a major content management system in open source product like Joomla, Drupal, Plum. So it's very easy to create the home page. So the WEKO is developed one of the module add-on of that content management system, CMS. You can decorate your own repository as you like by using the functionality shipped with CMS. And as a CMS, content management system, we're utilizing the NetCommon. This is also developed by our institution. So this is an information sharing system and a content management system, and also has a functionality as a LMS, learning management system. But the functionality of the learning management system is not so sophisticated if you compare with that of the Moodle Sakai, but still have the simple type of the learning management system, and also can be used as a groupware. And this is a feature of the NetCommons. The NetCommons has a different type of the space. The one is the public space. This is a space, a web page, everybody can visit or can see it. And the institutional repository will be pasted on this public space. The second one is the group space. Only the group member can access to this group space. So you can use it as a groupware or management of e-learning or build up the community space by using this group space. The final one is a private space. You can use that as a file storage on the web, or you can store your daily memo and your schedule in a private space. And the NetCommons as a content management system, this is a content management system. They can manage the content itself. And this is the functionality from the viewpoint of the word is very similar with that of the institutional repository or repository system. What's the big differences between the repository system and the general content management system? The one is a metadata management. The content management system also has a general functionality to manage the metadata itself, but the granularity is totally different from that of the librarian's point of view. The librarians, and also I can say the same thing in member which are handling the e-learning contents, would like to manage the metadata, very sophisticated metadata. So we have that kind of functionality. And the second one is the searching function. So we want to have a directory search and also keyword search. And even a keyword search, we want to have a simple metadata search and detailed metadata search, facet search, and also full text search. This functionality never prepared in the general content management system. And third one is the protocol. Between the repository, we want to have a metadata exchange. Mainly, this is a de facto standard by using the OAI PMH protocol. And also, from the viewpoint of the searching, we want to have an open search protocol. So these protocols never prepared, shipped with general CMS. That's why we developed the WEKO system, different from the contents management system, general module. And here is the system architecture of the WEKO system. As I said to you before, the WEKO system has been developed as one of the module or add-on on the top of the NetCommons contents management system. And NetCommons system itself has a different type of the modules. So you can use that the NetCommons module in addition to the WEKO system. And here is a summary of the functions that WEKO has. So I want to explain which kind of feature WEKO has depending on the privilege. This is a functionality for the guest user function. So this kind of function can be used without login. So there's a language section, a keyword search, and directory search. And also there's tabs named ranking tab. So if you're clicking the ranking tab, you can see the different type of the ranking, the access logs or newly contents stored in the repository. And here is the login user functionality. So between the top and the ranking tab, after the logging in, the item registration and the workflow tab will be appeared. And by clicking the item registration, the item contents deposit flow workflow will be started. And all contents stored in this repository can be managed by clicking the workflow tab. And here is the functions for the administrator. So I mean the university librarians or repository managers. So the WEKO has this kind of different type of the control panel in as an administration functionality. So there are so many different type of the functions. So I cannot explain one by one in detail, but the all customization of the WEKO system can be done by using this WEKO control panel. Just by using your mouse and just by using your laptop and browser. And also, WEKO has a multilingual functionality. I'm very sorry, I forgot to prepare the Tagalog, your local language. So we would like to prepare this local language with the community in this country. And not only the one-by-one deposit, the WEKO allows to multiple deposits by using the special application, Windows application named Sword Client for WEKO. So by using this application, and if you prepare the metadata in an Excel file and a PDF file, the multiple contents can be uploaded to the WEKO system just by one click. The Sword Client for WEKO. And not only the monograph. For instance, the WEKO has a centralized flash converter service as a backend engine. So if you upload the PowerPoint file to the WEKO system, and if you would like to show the PowerPoint file instantly on the browser, the PowerPoint file will be sent to the flash converter, and the converted flash file will be sent back to the WEKO system. And you can display it on the web browser. So you can use this functionality to the Office-related file in addition to the PDF file. And WEKO has a photo album functionality, and movie and music also can be handled by the WEKO interface. And here is a current R&D items in Agile Cloud and WEKO system. As I said before, that now the Agile Cloud has a more than 250 institutional repository. So the Agile Cloud, we can analyze the logs across the university. So we can make a big data of the institutional repository log file. So by using this log analysis, we would like to insist importance of the Agile Cloud system and the institution system, and how to utilize from the end users And maybe in the near future, we would like to show some good example or in terms of the access long analysis. And the second one is the automatic aggregation of the publication list. I guess many of the university now would like to have an institutional repository, but also have a publication management system of the faculty member. So that from the viewpoint of the faculty, they have to deposit the content to the institutional repository, and they also have to deposit the metadata of their publication list to their university's publication management system. They have a lot of load have to be forced to the faculty members, and we have to have many complaints from the faculty members and professors. And in order to avoid such a claim and complaint, we are trying to collaborate between the repository and publication management system. And in Japan, we have a researchers' electronic CV platform named ResearchMap. And this is operated by our institution, the other national body organization. And many of the researchers are now using this CV platform as their home page, and many of the universities also started to utilize this system as their cloud-type publication management system. And once the researcher publish their contents, they deposit the metadata, but still the metadata level in this ResearchMap system. And then now, but at the beginning of this system doesn't have a search engine. So I put the WEKO system named Open Repository as a backend search engine of this ResearchMap. So the Open Repository now managing the metadata of the publication list of each individual researcher. So if the researcher deposits a new publication list in a ResearchMap, and that's going to be captured by the Open Repository. And then the Open Repository send the email to the repository manager or deposit the contents directly to the Agile Cloud system. And then finally, university librarian try to negotiate with the researcher in order to get the full text contents. So this kind of the workflow we would like to create in this collaboration. And this is some example about the collaboration between the repository and the Open University of Japan. As I said to you before, the learning material contents in a repository, the number of the contents is not so many. However, the many of the access has been counted in a repository side. And it's so valuable from the end user. And our IRDB content analysis system harvesting all the data, metadata from the university's institutional repository. Now, the IRDB content analysis system send the type of the learning material contents to the Open University repository. And then the Open University in Japan add some important metadata in terms of the learning object materials. I guess this is a metadata schema in the e-learning field. And then provide it to the OER AGI harvester or any other worldwide community. And this is the first step of our collaboration. But in a second phase, we would like to aggregate the data from the OUJ, Open University in Japan repository, to the institutional repository. The repositories in Open University in Japan also employ the WEKO system, and they are aggregating the data from each individual university's OCW repository. And we want to merge this kind of different system into the single one. So, we want to make the learning materials more searchable and more visible in Japan. So maybe our challenge or our strategy and continuously making more successful. And in our WEKO system, we have a install manual, and by using the install manual, the last year, this is just the last year, we had a WEKO training workshop in Malaysia. And some of the university in Malaysia, they keen to learn the WEKO system itself, and we had a WEKO training course workshop. And on the next day, the first day was how to install the WEKO system into their individual server. And on the second day, we had lecture how to utilize the WEKO system itself with the Malaysian library people. And this was our second opportunity to have a WEKO International Symposium workshop with Malaysian people. And we have an install manual. We have a user manual which counted more than 176 pages. And we have also a specific manual how to use a specific functionality in the WEKO system. And by using this manual, we're planning with Ishan to have a WEKO workshop on coming 5th. And this is the half-day workshop, but we would like to have would like to introduce how to use the WEKO system itself. So this is our first trial to collaborate with them people here in this country. This is some first step, but I think this is going to be a very big step between the two countries, between the Sri Lanka and Japan. And we would like to make our collaboration more bigger, and we would like to deploy and also advocate the meanings and importance of the open access, especially from the viewpoint of the learning materials, not only the monograph, and also there are different types of the contents. We want to have a challenge, and I want to challenge with you. So that's my challenge, and I'm very excited to have this kind of workshop in this country. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for that very informative lecture. Now, you're talking about this WEKO system a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand that it's homegrown. It's developed by your team and NII. Why should my question to you would be, why should an institution go for a repository system such as WEKO, when most of the institutions already have systems like DSpace and ePrints in place? Mm-hmm. Why would they want to migrate onto a system like WEKO?
We have a really complicated history in Japan. The early adapters in Japan, when they developed the institutional repository in Japan, they used the DSpace system. And most of the repository developed by the university by themselves is the DSpace. This is the situation. But if I compare the technical level of the library with the European country and the United States, the Japanese librarians doesn't have good enough technology or knowledge to version up the DSpace, or to customize the DSpace, and to go to the DSpace community. So that's why. But still, they want to have new functionality, and they have an image they would like to move, or they would like to make their system to be this type of the new feature. And the DSpace system and the ePrint system is a very nice system. But honestly speaking, we have a language barrier, and we have a community barrier. They have a well-developed community in the United States and the European country. So when you operate the system itself, the distance between the developing team and the user have to be more closed. That's why we decided to have develop our homegrown system itself, and especially by focusing on easy to use from the viewpoint of the librarians in terms of the repositories on sustainable manner, and would like to close the developers with the end users. And maybe I can say the same thing, not only in Japan, but also the Asian country. We are very close in terms of the distance. I can come here very easily. And we are the Asian people. So not only the Japanese people, we can create a worldwide community bottoming up from this region to and more making more bigger and bigger. And this is my dream, and this is my future vision.
Well, that sounds good. Now, for the institutions or the librarians who already use DSpace or ePrints, if they wanted to, I'm pretty sure most librarians have a vision for their repository system. So, how easy would it be to migrate the existing material onto a system repository such as WEKO?
Okay. Until the last year, our Jai Cloud system just accepting the newcomers, new university, which doesn't have a repository at all so far. But from this year, we will start to accept the universities which has already have a repository system, in order to reduce their operational cost or their headache in the repository operation. And in order to make it more easier, we developed data transfer system from the DSpace to WEKO system. So once you export the data from DSpace, I forget in detail how to do that, but it's not so difficult. Maybe this is just a database dump file or just exporting to the CSV file or something. And we have a converter. And once you input the data into the converter, this produces the WEKO importing system. So, of course, some of the DSpace has already been customized each by each. And in order to solve such a kind of, the local customization, we have to adjust a little bit the filter of that converter. But basically, it's not so difficult, I guess. And after migrating from the DSpace to the WEKO system, this is my honor. Many of the librarians acknowledge us. It's so easy to use. And you can decorate the repository system as they want by using the Net Commons Contents Management System. And that's the biggest advantage of the WEKO system itself. And we doesn't have an experience from the ePrints, but the Malaysian University have already been converted from the ePrint system to the WEKO system. And they are now moving to the WEKO system and running on. So basically it's not so difficult, I guess. But we have a transporter.
Okay, let me just rephrase that for the benefit of our listeners joining us online. There are two questions. The first one is how are you going to go about sustaining the WEKO system in the long run? And
the WEKO system itself or general repository? WEKO system itself.
Okay. The second question was now repository systems such as DSpace are very tailor-made to become content repositories. However, WEKO is a kind of an add-on or a collaboration of softwares. So, with comparing the efficiency of the two systems like DSpace and WEKO, what are the gaps and, how efficient is WEKO when comparing with a purpose-built system like DSpace?
Well, as for the first question, it's very hard to answer because there's no promise. Maybe our institution is also possibly destroyed in the near future. I don't know. No one knows. But now, more than 250 universities now using the repository system. So, our institution is funded by the government, Japanese government. And now in our content sector, this WEKO system and the Agile Cloud is one of the priority of our institution in our contents department. So there's going to be a long sustainable. Have to have a we developed. This is produced by the as an open source, but they are still we don't have a developers in something like developing community. But I can say the same thing in a DSpace and ePrints. So this is a type of the cathedral type open source community. But it's so. While our institution is supporting the repository activity community, and while our institution are there with the WEKO system, we be developed in a long-term manner. So maybe there's no clear answer for that question, but I can say the same thing in any single open source community or something.
The second one is the efficiency of the system.
As I said, WEKO is one of the modules of the contents management system. The WEKO system is so huge. Maybe I guess the amount of the source code is almost the same as the DSpace or something. So I can say the WEKO is developed as one of the add-on or module of the contents management system, but the system itself is almost the same with the DSpace and ePrints itself.
You were saying that most of the Asian countries are using the DSpace system, and to migrate onto a system such as WEKO, is a big headache, yeah. Right? Also, he was talking about the WEKO metadata initiative, DCMI, as well as some your system uses IEEE LOM, I think. Is WEKO compatible with DCMI as well as IEEE LOM? That's one question. The other question would be, can the existing DSpace system remain as it is, and then we can have a front-end WEKO system which will harvest the metadata from the DSpace system, but not the actual document content? Can that be automated so that it reduces the burden on the librarians?
Yeah, you can do that. So the WEKO can work as a OIPMH data provider and service provider. So if a national repository will be launched by using the WEKO system, it can harvest the data from the DSpace by using the OIPMH and by using the Dublin core. So I guess from that point of view, there's no problem with that. And once you have experience by using such collaboration, once you have experience to touch with the WEKO system and feel about their advantage, it's a good time to move from DSpace to WEKO system. So migration itself is not so difficult. The last year, one of the big repository in Japan, it's stored more than, it's very hard to count in English, but 10 times more contents in your from your repository. They store the contents, but easily can migrate from the DSpace to WEKO system. So the migration itself is not so difficult, I guess. So the first, maybe you can collaborate, your DSpace can collaborate with the WEKO system, and maybe the DSpace is just going to be a data provider, and the WEKO will be a kind of the service provider. And in Japan, there are some examples. There are several universities, even in a single prefecture, a single state. And the national university launched the local repository harvester or repository, which harvests the data from the local university in that prefecture. and made a search window. So like that way, you can use the WEKO system and harmonize with the still existing DSpace system. I guess that I said there are about 80 national university are there in Japan, and most of them are now using the DSpace.
What's the percentage between the Japanese content and the English content?
The most of the content is, I guess, the Japanese content. So the most of the contents are using the 2-byte character in Japan. So from that point of view, because the majority of the contents is in departmental bulletin paper written in Japanese. But some of the university are now paying their best effort to get a self-archiving paper, which is mainly written in English. But I can say that most of the content is still written in Japanese in case of the Japanese repository.
Even in metadata in Japanese?
And in case of the metadata, I guess the most of the paper still have an English version of the metadata. So maybe that have both language written in the Japanese and English in case of the metadata.
Right. Kazu, I have just 2 more questions before we conclude. The first one is now, the WEKO system is built on the NetCommons CMS,
okay,
which is also homegrown, I think. Mm-hmm. Do you have extensions or plugins for, Joomla or Drupal or WordPress or something like that?
At this moment, I don't have any. I don't have a plan to extend the WEKO system to the other contents management system. So in case of the DSpace, there's and this is not a DSpace. There's a Drupal plugin by using the. It's not a DSpace, yeah, but
Drupal plugin for this.
Yeah. So it's out of our focus
At the moment.
Yeah, at the moment.
Right. So the last question to you. Now, you were talking about the automatic aggregation of publications by the university. Mm-hmm. Now, most of us academics are used to using repositories such as ResearchGate, mm-hmm, right? And, whenever we go there, we put it online and, it gets into the community. It's a crowdsourced system, there's a lot of participation and things like that. What are the advantages you see in academics putting their research materials into a local repository where the visibility is a bit less compared to systems like ResearchGate, which are indexed by Google Scholar and which are regularly harvested?
That's right. You're true. But a repository can push the data to the Google Scholar. But I guess this is a kind of a political reason. I guess the most of the founders, national founders, would like to manage, would like to know what kind of publication are there by using the national funding program, and also the university have to manage the publication list, in order to show their achievement to the government. So in case of the Japan, we have to have a local management system from both the university's management point of view and the governmental point of view. And by using the research map, the government would like to try the text mining about the funding result. And by from that the text mining, they would like to see maybe the United States was also doing similar kind of process. They would like to see that which part are the most active in the current research community, and which part will go to the more active in the research community. They would like to pursue such a kind of the community activity by using that kind of data.
Right. I think we are running out of time. If you want to learn more about WEKO and how to use it, the Open University of Sri Lanka is organizing a workshop. Dr. Yamaji and his associate, Mr. Hiroshi Kato, has arrived in Sri Lanka, and they will be conducting this workshop on the 5th in the STC building of the university. So if you're interested, it's free. You can come and join Dr. Yamaji and his associate to see how this system is implemented, how it can help your institution, and how you can go forwards with it. Now, it's been a pleasure having you here. I mean, Kazu has become a close friend over the years, and it's his second visit to Sri Lanka, so welcome back. On that note, we would like to thank, the Center for Educational Technology and Media, the SETMI Media House here at the Open University of Sri Lanka, who is helping us with the live streaming as well as videographing these sessions and this lecture series. The next lecture will be delivered by Professor Tsuneo Yamada of the Open University of Japan. And he will be speaking about, he will deliver another technical lecture, mostly on the subject of MOOCs, which are massive open online courses, and how Japan has gone ahead and implemented the JMOOC initiative. Also, he would introduce how the JMOOC Foundation has implemented a certain technical platform for delivering MOOCs in an Asian context. So I think that will be another interesting lecture for us. Professor Yamada will also be conducting a workshop on MOOCs as well as this MOOC platform on the 6th of February. That's also held at the STC building. It's open to everyone. It's free of charge, and I hope all of you will make this opportunity to come and learn about the new technologies being used in our friendly partner, the Japanese context. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we are waiting on 5th.